Imagine waking up one morning to headlines exploding across the tech world. Millions of users are uninstalling Windows, tech forums are on fire, and downloads of Linux distributions are breaking records. Social media is buzzing with screenshots of fresh desktop environments, terminal windows glowing with green text, and users proudly announcing that they've finally made the switch. The story spreads fast. Windows users are abandoning Microsoft, and even Bill Gates is reportedly surprised by the speed of the shift. Whether dramatic or gradual, the narrative feels powerful. Something big is happening in the world of desktop computing, and the balance of power may be changing. For decades, Microsoft Windows has been the default choice for personal computing. From the early dominance of Windows 95 to the modern era of Windows 10 and Windows 11, the operating system built an ecosystem that seemed unshakable. Offices, schools, gaming setups, corporate networks Windows was everywhere. And at the center of Microsoft's story has always been Bill Gates, the co-founder who helped turn a small software company into one of the most powerful tech giants in history. Even though Gates is no longer running day-to-day operations, his name is still deeply associated with Microsoft's success and the Windows empire. But in recent years, something has shifted. The rise of Linux on the desktop, once considered a niche hobbyist movement, has begun to feel less like a fringe experiment and more like a serious alternative. The question is no longer whether Linux can replace Windows for certain users, but how many users are ready to make that leap and why. To understand this migration, we need to look at what Linux really is. Unlike Windows, Linux is not owned by a single corporation. It is built around the Linux kernel originally created by Linus Torvalds in 1991, and it is developed collaboratively by a global community of programmers. Instead of one unified product, Linux exists in many distributions, often called distros, each tailored for different needs. Some focus on simplicity, some on stability, some on performance, and some on complete control. Over the years, projects like Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Fedora, Arch Linux, and many others have transformed Linux from a command-line playground into a polished, modern desktop experience. So what's driving Windows users away from Microsoft? The reasons are layered, emotional, practical, and sometimes philosophical. One of the most frequently cited concerns is control. Modern versions of Windows have introduced deeper system integrations, automatic updates, background services, and telemetry features that collect diagnostic data. While Microsoft argues that telemetry improves user experience and security, many users feel that they have lost control over their own machines. Updates can restart systems at inconvenient times. Settings may change after major upgrades. Features are added or removed without user choice. For power users and privacy-conscious individuals, this has created frustration. Linux, by contrast, offers a sense of ownership. When you install a Linux distribution, you typically choose exactly which desktop environment you want. You decide when to update. You can inspect system processes, remove unwanted packages, and even rebuild parts of the system if you have the knowledge. There are no forced advertisements in the start menu, no bundled trial software, and no default pressure to use a particular browser or cloud service. For users who value autonomy, Linux feels liberating. Cost is another factor. While many people receive Windows pre-installed on their computers, businesses and custom PC builders often face licensing costs. Linux distributions, on the other hand, are generally free and open source. For startups, educational institutions, and individuals in developing regions, the ability to install a fully functional operating system without paying licensing fees can be a game changer. When organizations look at large-scale deployments, the financial math becomes even more compelling. Performance also plays a critical role. As hardware ages, newer versions of Windows can feel heavier. Background services, visual effects, and integrated features may consume memory and CPU resources. Many Linux distributions are optimized to run efficiently, even on older machines. Lightweight desktop environments can revive laptops that struggle under modern Windows installations. For users who don't want to upgrade hardware every few years, Linux offers a second life for their devices. Security is another major driver of migration. Windows, due to its dominant market share, has historically been a primary target for malware and ransomware attacks. While Microsoft has significantly improved Windows security over time, the perception remains that Linux is less vulnerable. Its permission model, software repository system, and open-source transparency create a different security landscape. Organizations concerned about cybersecurity sometimes see Linux as a strategic alternative, particularly for servers and development environments. As users become more aware of digital threats, some are extending that logic to their personal desktops. The growth of cloud computing and web-based applications has also weakened Windows' traditional advantages. In the past, many essential programs were Windows only. Microsoft Office, Adobe Creative Suite, certain engineering tools, and countless proprietary applications locked users into the Windows ecosystem. Today, however, web applications dominate many workflows. Google Docs, Figma, Slack, Zoom, and countless SaaS platforms run in browsers. As long as you have a modern browser, your operating system matters less. This shift has made Linux a viable option for everyday productivity tasks. Gaming, once the ultimate barrier, is no longer an impossible dream on Linux. Thanks to developments like Proton and compatibility layers, many Windows games can now run on Linux with minimal effort. Graphics driver support has improved dramatically. Valve's investment in Linux-based gaming systems has pushed the ecosystem forward. While Windows still holds an advantage in certain titles and anti-cheat systems, the gap is narrowing. For some gamers, the trade-offs are no longer deal-breakers. Developers have also played a huge role in the migration. Programming communities often prefer Linux due to its powerful terminal, package managers, and native Unix-like environment. Web developers, DevOps engineers, and open-source contributors frequently use Linux servers. Running the same environment locally can simplify workflows. As more developers adopt Linux personally, they influence peers and organizations. Over time, this cultural shift spreads outward. But the story isn't purely technical. It's emotional and symbolic. Some users feel that Microsoft's direction no longer aligns with their values. The integration of cloud accounts, subscription services, and AI-driven features into the operating system can feel intrusive. When users sense that their operating system is nudging them toward specific products or services, they may seek alternatives. Linux represents independence. It represents community-driven innovation rather than corporate strategy. Of course, the idea that Bill Gates is personally shocked by this migration is more symbolic than literal. Gates stepped down from Microsoft's board years ago and now focuses primarily on global health and philanthropy. However, his legacy remains intertwined with Windows. The notion of him being surprised captures a broader narrative, the titan of proprietary software witnessing a surge in open-source adoption. It's a dramatic contrast between two eras of computing. The migration is not uniform. Many users try Linux and eventually return to Windows due to software compatibility, hardware driver issues, or personal preference. Others adopt dual-boot setups, keeping both systems on the same machine. Some switch entirely and never look back. The movement is less a sudden exodus and more a steady current growing each year, fueled by online tutorials, YouTube channels, and community forums. Social media amplifies this trend. Influencers showcase clean Linux desktops, customizable themes, and streamlined workflows. Viral posts highlight frustrations with Windows updates or system requirements. Each story adds momentum. The narrative of a mass migration spreads faster than the actual numbers, but perception can be powerful. When people believe a shift is happening, they become more willing to explore alternatives themselves. Hardware manufacturers are starting to notice. Some companies now ship laptops with Linux pre-installed. Others certify compatibility with popular distributions. This legitimizes Linux in the eyes of mainstream consumers. When users see official support, their hesitation decreases. Educational institutions are another catalyst. Students learning programming, cybersecurity, or data science often encounter Linux early in their training. Once they become comfortable with it, they may choose to use it on personal devices. Over time, a generation raised on open-source tools can reshape the market. Despite all these factors, Windows remains dominant. Enterprises rely on Active Directory, legacy applications, and established workflows. Many creative professionals depend on specialized Windows software. The inertia of decades cannot be overturned overnight, but dominance is not immunity. Market shares can shift gradually, especially when driven by passionate communities. The mass migration narrative reflects deeper questions about the future of computing. Will operating systems become invisible layers beneath cloud services? Will open-source collaboration outpace proprietary development? Will users demand more transparency and control over their devices? These questions extend beyond Microsoft and Linux, they touch the entire tech industry. In reality, the relationship between Microsoft and Linux is more complex than rivalry alone. Microsoft now contributes to open-source projects and even supports Linux within its own ecosystem. The company provides tools and platforms that integrate with Linux servers. This evolution suggests that the boundaries between worlds are blurring. What once seemed like a binary battle is becoming a hybrid landscape. So is Bill Gates shocked? Perhaps not in a literal sense. But the symbolic idea captures a cultural moment. The rise of Linux on the desktop signals that users are more informed, more empowered, and more willing to explore alternatives than ever before. They are no longer locked into a single choice. They can experiment, compare, and decide based on their priorities. The story of Windows users abandoning Microsoft for Linux is not just about software. It's about control, privacy, cost, performance, philosophy, and the democratization of technology. It's about a generation that grew up with one dominant system, discovering that another path exists. It's about communities building tools together and sharing them freely. Whether this migration becomes a tidal wave or remains a steady stream, it represents a meaningful shift in awareness. And in the world of technology, awareness is often the first step toward transformation.